It still is not the only. You know, my video. I'm getting clicks. I just turned on it with dozens of messages here. The meeting has been recorded.
Okay, where are we? What pasuk, what chapter?
I think we're Pasuk Vav, Perek Vav, Yud Aleph, or Yud or Yud Aleph, or Yud Beis.
Press.
I just want you a happy birthday. That's what it said.
Was that
Hi, Peggy.
Hi, happy birthday, Bernie.
How do you
And
remember?
the whole world knows.
No, because it was on the Yavne, whatever, the Shabbos.
Oh, you get that? Okay.
Yeah, and it said that, well, Bernard Monder, our birthday.
They made a big deal. I got a shout out in shul.
Good, good. You deserve it.
Baruch Hashem.
Feeling.
Baruch Hashem is right.
Are you making good progress?
Yeah.
Yes, Baruch Hashem.
Do you
That's
still
very.
have on the cast?
What?
The neck brace?
I took it off now, but I was wearing it all day.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
You were able to go to shul?
No, not yet.
You're still at home. Okay.
Still at home.
How's Ellie doing?
Good.
Yum, yum.
Yum, yum.
Yeah.
Visitors?
Visitors? Yeah, he'd like visitors, of course.
Okay.
What are we on, Zion?
No, I think we're Vav, Perek Vav, don't we? Still on Perek Vav?
No, I think also that we're
Did
on.
he finish it? I don't think.
We didn't
Did he finish
finish
it?
What are we on, Faggy?
I don't know. I didn't write, I don't know. I didn't write it
I'm
down.
guilty of the same. Let's see where they're at.
Oh,
Navi Shiur. Chapter 8? How come it be chapter 8 already?
oh.
Did he really finish Zion? Oh my God, I falling behind.
Just hear me.
All right, you want to be seen? Here, now you're seen. Peggy, can you see Tammy?
I only see you.
Okay.
Hi, Tammy.
I'm freezing.
What?
I've been freezing all day.
What?
She's cold.
Oh, cold, yeah.
No, but Bernie warmed up the room for me, so that's nice.
I'm a little closer.
Shavuot Tov.
Mario. Why gotta be Perek behind here? That doesn't make sense.
Why not?
Okay.
Mario, are we on Perek Chet?
7.
Chapter 8?
7.
7.
7?
It's 8. I may be wrong.
Vav.
No, I think we're right.
So you fix your logging?
I thought he did, but anyway, he
Yeah,
put on a
no.
new program. I used the old one.
Oh, yeah.
So far, so good.
Shavuot Tov.
Shavuot Tov.
Let's just wait a few minutes so everybody else joins.
Oldie. Happy birthday, Sophia Cole, I guess also.
No, so
Yeah.
they're really cold. Good. Make sure they cool
I have
me.
to call tomorrow in the morning.
Oh.
Biggie, how are you?
Getting better, thank God, Baruch Hashem.
Hashem.
Yeah.
Here's Johnny.
Here's Johnny.
Mhm.
There's Bernie. Bernie's on.
Okay. We are on Perek Zion. If you remember, Esther had asked Haman and Achashverosh to come to a second Mishta. And Haman is just, it's already, the story is beginning to turn against Haman. Last week, Haman was forced to parade Mordechai around in royal clothing. And then as he was passing by his house, his daughter dumped the chamber pot on his head. And then the advisors told him that, if you're in trouble because the Jew is on the rise and you're coming down. And he wanted to quickly go to Achashverosh, we said last week, and still argue that maybe he should still kill Mordechai, but they quickly grabbed him before he could come up with his suggestions. So Perek Zayin, Vayabo Melech ve'Haman lishtot im Esther al-Malka. Now, you notice in the beginning, in Perek Hey, in the first Mishnah, it doesn't say anything about Esther joining in the feast because she was fasting. She had 3 days of fasting. Now the 3 days of fasting are over, and she's able to participate, so says the Alshich. Now, Haman is already very depressed. He sees everything going against him. Achashverosh has had these dreams where Haman is killing him. So he's also very disturbed. So what do people do when they're depressed? They drink. So they're going to get drunk. That's now when you get drunk, Esther's going to have some requests from Achashverosh. Well, when you're drunk, you're in a good mood. And even though Achashverosh is in a bad mood, it seems like Hashem is orchestrating events so that it's going to be favorable that Achashverosh is going to listen to his wife Esther. Pesach Beis. Vayomer HaMelech leEsther. Gam. And some of the Meforshim say, you can see from the Gam, even though it's the second Mishnah, remember we learned that Hashem caused Chain to emanate from Esther, which swayed Achashverosh. So Gam denotes that the same Chain is existing even in the second Mishnah. Gam bayom hasheni b'mishnah hayayin. I'm telling you the same thing like I told you in the first Mishnah. What is your request? It will be given to you. And we already explained the Chatzia Malchus up to rebuilding the Beis HaMikdash he wasn't prepared to do. But everything else he was prepared. You notice here, if you compare this pasuk to the pasuk in Perek Hey, there it says Vayomer HaMelech leEsther b'mishteh hayayin ma'aseh lasech minasin lach. Here it says ma'aseh lasech Esther HaMalka. You can see her Achashverosh's love for Esther has grown, or she's finding more chen in his eyes. So there's more chen being given to Esther even at this time. We're going to learn in Sefer Ezra, God willing, soon. We're going to start Sefer Ezra when we finish Esther. That Koresh, the first Koresh, remember, the son of Achashverosh and Esther is called Koresh Hasheni, or Daryavish, but he's also known as Koresh Hasheni. The first Koresh had allowed Klal Yisrael to come back, and Ezra came back with them. And they started building the Beis HaMikdash. But they got letters. Haman was some of the people that wrote letters to stop it. And we're going to learn in Ezra, there were three people, Geshem, Tuvia, and Sanballat, who are known as the Tsarei Yehuda Binyamin. And Achashverosh had sort of sworn that he would stop the building. And remember, he had the astrologers had told him that there's going to be some Jew is going to reign next after him. And now he understands. His wife is Jewish. His wife is going to rule after him. And permission will be given to the son to rebuild it. Pasuk Gimel. Vatan Esther Amalkava Tomar. So Esther answers, Imatzati chen beinecha melech, v'imal melech tov. Notice the two melechs. Tinase li nafshi b'sheilasi, my life is in your hands, and I want to ask for my people as well. The Targum says that this first mention of the word HaMelech refers to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's as if Esther is davening to Shamayim and saying, Hashem, if I have found favor in your eyes, then she turns to Achashverosh, please give my life to me and rescue my people. Rashi says, when she said, Tinase li nafshi b'shelasi, shelo eherog b'shlosha b'adar, shegzeras gzeras hariga lami umaladati. My request is I should not be killed on the 13th of Adar coming up, because an edict has been declared that both I and my people will be killed. And that Ami would also please give the bakasha that they should not be killed. Later on, it's not mentioned in this pasuk, but in Perek Ches, the next Perek that we're going to learn, it's going to bring a pasuk that she said here, which we also, when we lane it b'lashon echa. Ki echacha uchav ra'isi. But it's really, how will I be able to see my people killed? So it really fits here. It really belongs here. It's written there. She says the same thing over there as well, but it probably was restated. Because even though she's asking for her life for herself, her life is not going to mean anything if her people are slain as well. She was worried that the king was going to do a compromise, that she's asking for her life and for her people's life. She'll make a compromise. She will be removed from the Gzeira, but not the people. So she had to tell him that my life being saved is not worth anything. I'd rather die than live. in that state. And that's the preface to the next pasuk. Ki nimkarnu ani v'ami. We have been sold, because basically we've been bought, right? Haman paid money. Lashmid, laharog, la'abed. To be destroyed, to be killed. This is translated labed, to be annihilated. V'ilu lavadim v'lishvachostim karnu. If the edict would have been that we would become slaves, hecharashti, I would have been silent. Ki ein atzar shoveh b'nezek hamelech. The enemy is not worth the damage that's being done to the king. The enemy meaning Haman. What's this lavadim v'lishvachos? Esther had understood through Ruach HaKodesh that there are many psukim in the Torah that say that if the Jews sin, they will be sold to their enemies. In the Tochacha, it says, "V'his makartem ve'ein koneh." They will be sold and nobody will buy them. But that is an understandable punishment. It's prophesied by the Torah. And if the edict would have been that you would have commanded that the Jewish people be sold as slaves, in essence, you'd be fulfilling the prophecy. And you would not, it would be no damage to accrue to you. But the decree is the extermination of the Jews. The Torah never talked about such a thing. And if you would have done that, you would have been punished enormously. And this enemy, Haman, the Tsar, didn't take that into consideration. The damage to the king that would result in the fact that you're going to wipe out the Jews. He's not concerned about your damage. If he would have been concerned, he would have advised, sell the Jews and pocket the money you're going to get for the sale. Of course, Esther didn't really want that to happen either, to be sold as slaves. But she's pointing out how Haman really didn't take into consideration Achashverosh at all. Very interesting. The Oyev Yisrael, the Sefer on Esther, says that when Haman had his discussion with Achashverosh about the Jews, and over there, Haman says, Yikasev le'abdam. Esther is telling Achashverosh, really, he and you understood la'avdan with an ayin, that they were going to be sold as slaves. Ayin beis daled mem. But Haman changed it when he wrote the edict to the letter aleph, abdam, which is to exterminate. And that's why she said it. They would have been sold as slaves. I would have been quiet. That was your intent in the first place. So Esther says to Achashverosh. So that's a nice trick about the ayin versus the aleph. So Achashverosh is boiling now. Pasuk Hey, Vayomer HaMelech Achashverosh, Vayomer Lester HaMakah, Mi Uzeh Ve'ezehu. And when I lay this, it's a very dramatic time. This is the peak of the Achash. Who is this? Who Hashem La'oli Bo Lasas Ken, who filled his heart to do this? Now, Achashverosh knew who he had made this edict with. He knew it was Haman. So why does he need to be pointed out who it is? So different Meforshim say different things to answer that question. Some say that when Haman discussed this decree with Achashverosh, it says, Yeshno Am Echad. He doesn't specifically mention the Jews to Achashverosh. He didn't identify them. And that's why right now Achashverosh doesn't really know Achashverosh, because she's revealed that she's a Yehudiya, and that there's been an edict against them. But Achashverosh was never really told, according to one pshat, who the people were. That's one pshat. Others say at this point she still didn't, Achashverosh hadn't dawned on him yet that she was a Jewish. And he still doesn't even realize what she's referring to. And like I said, by the way, if you go back to Perek Dalet and you look at the dialogue between Haman and Achashverosh, Achashverosh said, "Lasospa katov beinecha." Do with them what you like, but he wasn't aware or something that was good for the country. But Haman did what he wanted to do.
And the Menei Amlois speaks of the Gemara in Megillah and Daf Gimel, saying the duplication of the word Vayomer Melech Achashverosh, Vayomer Esther. He was that Achashverosh was in the habit of treating Esther as if she was inferior to his status, and therefore he spoke always in the past to a spokesman who then spoke directly to Esther. But now that she revealed to him that she was from royalty, that she comes from Shaul HaMelech and Shevet Binyamin, he treated her differently. He speaks by Yomer Esther. He speaks to her directly.
In fact, there are two pshatim in that Gemara. That initially always there would be a Meturgamin, and now through the great love, he got rid of the Meturgamin. But in Eicha Rabbah it says, once he found out that she was a Jewess, he put a Meturgamin there.
You put a what?
He put a translator, Meturgaman. And that's why it says Vayomer twice. Before he knew she was a Jewess, it was a public discussion without a Meturgaman. Once he knew she was a Yehudit, then it came through a Meturgaman. Now, the Chazal are conflicted. What did really Achashverosh feel now that he knew that she was Jewish? It's a chisaron and it's a maila. Remember, we've already described Achashverosh as a big anti-Semite. Remember, he said he was a big Sonei Yisrael. So by finding out that she's a Jewish, that's a chisaron. On the other hand, she's not an orphan. She comes, like Bernie said, from an important royal family, from Shaul HaMelech. The other maila is, we've been learning up until now, Achashverosh was constantly pestering her to find out what her nationality is. Now he's been told. The Yaros Dvash, Rav Yonis and Eibshitz, also said, why was Achashverosh a Sonei Yisrael? We said again, because his astrologers had seen in the future that a Jew was going to rule after him. And that made him angry. And it was always, and there now, and therefore, according to the Pshat, that he knew that it was the Jewish people that he was going to exterminate, he was happy with that. But now, he doesn't have a problem. Because his son, who's going to be the king afterwards, is his son. And he's going to be Jewish. That's not a problem, because it's Esther Amalka, it's Bas Yisrael. So he was happy because of that. Others say the Medrash on Esther says that if he would have known that Esther was a Yehudit, he never would have signed on the decree. He wouldn't have. He wouldn't. He wouldn't have. He wouldn't have done it. The Maharal also says in this discussion of Esther to Achashverosh that in fact Haman's whole intent making the Gzeira on the Jews was to kill her. Just like he had given the advice to kill Vashti. And that's the double mihu zev ezehu. And derech sod, or remez, that basically Achashverosh is telling Esther that this Gzeira, to be put to death as a people, was a Gzeira min hashamayim. Because a human being can't make such a Gzeira. That's why in Pasuk Dalid, Mordechai inquires, Ladat mazeh ve'al mazeh. And what did the Medrash there say? That maybe Klal Yisrael has violated Zeh Keli Vanveyu, which is because when they bowed down to the Tselem of Nebuchadnezzar, they went against worshiping idols. Or maybe they went against the Luchos, because they ate treif by the Sud of Achashverosh. By the Luchos it says, Mizeh u'mizeh hein ksuvim. The Luchos are written both sides, or through and through. Therefore, he uses the same lashon, miuzeh ve'ezehu, the mazeh ve'al mazeh, mizeh u'mizeh hem ksuvim. We're going to see how Esther answers now. Ish sarva oyev hamana razeh. Basically, Esther is answering, Haman is the Satan, the Yetzer Hara, the Malach HaMavis. He causes Klal Yisrael to sin. Now it's time, and therefore Klal Yisrael, when they sinned, it was because they have a Yetzer Hara. And Haman represents that. Now it's time to get rid of him from the world. That's why when in the Gemara in Chulin, they ask a question, Haman min haTorah minayin. Where do we see a hint of Haman min haTorah? Hamin ha'etz hazeh asher amarti lecha lo tochlu mimenu achalta. It goes all the way back to the Eitz Hadas. Who advised Adam and Chava to eat? The Nachash. Who is the Nachash? The Nachash is the Yetzer Hara. So it's all tied together in a bow here. So Pasuk Vav, Vatomer Esther, each sarva oyev, Haman harazeh. The enemy is Haman. The Haman nivat. Haman was trembling with the Melech v'Hamalka, fearing for his life. The Vilna Gaon says like this. You notice it says, Milifnei HaMelech v'Hamalka. So the Gra understands that he's trembling because both of them are there. For example, if he would have been confronted only by one of them. Remember, we said Haman was a great talker. He could be malsh. He knew how to. There was nobody who told Lashon Hara better than Haman. So if the Malka, the queen herself, by herself, would have confronted Haman, he would have said, I didn't know you were Jewish. I didn't know the Jews were your people. And he wouldn't have issued a decree. To Achashverosh, he would have said, fine. Esther might be Jewish, but the people are still worthy of being killed. But they couldn't, but being both there, he couldn't say to the king with Esther being there that the Jews are evil. So that's how the Gaon learns why it says Mifnei Melech v'Malka together. By the way, the word Tsar, those of us in Daf Yomi know that before Rabbeinu Gershom, in the year 1000, made a gzeira that Ashkenazim are not allowed to have two wives. The Sephardim didn't have such a prohibition. I remember Eli always telling us in learning, in Morocco, there were people who had two wives. But the Ashkenazim, we had a gzeira. The second wife is called a tzara. So Haman had a daughter, and he wanted the daughter to marry Achashverosh. That was his intent when he gave advice to kill Vashti. But now that Esther was chosen as the queen, he wanted to kill her because he wanted to get his daughter in that position. And in order to do it, he made a gzeira against all of the Jewish people to kill her as well. That's why he's listed as a tsar. It's like having two women married to one person as a tzara.
But I'm sure he had many wives.
Say it again?
Don't you think Ahasuerus had many wives?
Hold on a second. So Haman knew that she was Jewish?
According to this pshat.
Yeah, but we just learned before that he didn't know. So, I mean, it's like, you understand.
No, but he
That's why I
wanted her
say there's
killed.
different
That's what-
opinions as how to interpret some of these verses.
Yeah.
he was
Okay.
killed so that was his father. But he probably had many wives.
The second shot is it's difficult to understand because had he known, he would have for sure told Achashverosh that.
You know that there are other Meforshim that say that Haman was part of the plot with big son Vaseresh. And that's another reason why he wanted to kill Mordechai. He wanted to sort of take revenge because he killed his friend's big son Vaseresh. And part of it was revenge. By the way, there's a Gemara that says, Omer Abelazar Malame tries to machve klapa Achashverosh, uba malach v'soter yoda klape Haman. Means when Esther pointed, Esther pointed, and she wanted to point to Achashverosh, but a malach came and moved it to Haman. So, the Ben Yehoyada wants to explain that the point to Achashverosh was that Haman is your enemy. That's why she was pointed to point out that Haman is your enemy, not just my enemy. Weiter. Pasuk Zayim. Vamelech kam b'chamaso mimishtei hayayim. He wanted to cool off in the garden because he was angry. He was in a rage. Meforshim say he stepped out for a minute to give Haman more of a chance to bury himself. And Achashverosh, the only reason he left because he's drunk, say the Meforshim. Otherwise, he wouldn't have left Haman alone with Esther. He wouldn't have run out if he would not have been drunk. He wouldn't have been in his rage with his chama.
No, another reason is because he was sorry that he killed Vashti because he was so angry. So he wanted to cool off in order to, to come to the right decision, not be sorry afterwards.
You're right, but the Yad HaMelech learns that this was part of Hashem's plan.
Mhm.
Let Haman dig himself even deeper in the hole. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's another interpretation.
So Achashverosh goes outside Al Ginata Bita, which is the garden of the palace. Ve'Haman Amad levakesh al nafsho Esther Malka. Haman wants to beg for his life. Ki ra'a ki chaltai levara meit hamelech. He saw that he had no chance with the king. The king he saw that the king's decision against him was fine. And he wanted to tell us, I didn't know that the Jewish people were your people. But he did. The Vilna Gaon says he didn't get very far until Achashverosh came back very quickly.
Wasn't he actually begging Esther to intercede on his behalf?
Yes, yes. And the reason he begged Esther, because Jews are Rachmanim, by Shanim, Goim lechasadim. By nature, they are merciful. By the way, the Mishbetz Zav says someone in Esther's ancestry also had Rachmanis. Shaul HaMelech, right, is part of the family. He had Rachmanis on Agag. The only reason Haman is alive because one night they didn't kill Agag. The next day Shmuel killed him. So he thought that maybe she'll remember Shaul, that he had mercy. And maybe his other argument would be, listen, you're only in the position you were in because I'm the one who gave an eitzah to Achashverosh to kill Vashti. The more mystical forms say that the Ginata Bitan was exactly the place where they made the Suda for the Shushan Jews. And they were Nene from Osa Susam. And that by pushing Achashverosh out there, it would based in Shamala, it would remind the Kodesh Baruch Hu of their sin. We see by Balak and Bilam, when Balak was trying to find places for Bilam to curse Klal Yisrael, he brought him to all sorts of places where in the future Klal Yisrael was going to sin. And there it's a bad place. Same thing. Here's the bad place, the Ginata Beitan. He made a mistake because Klal Yisrael done tshuva on those 3 days. So much so that the Mezid became Zechuyos.
Just an interesting afterthought. The last part, the last 4 words of the pasuk, Ki kolsa alav hara. If you look at the last letter of each one of the words, it spells Yud K Vav K. Haman came to realize that it was God who was acting, was determining his end.
Absolutely. By the way, the person who says this is the Maram Shiv. But you notice it's at the end of the letter. It's at the end of the word, not the beginning of the word. So that shows that the raw has been switched. Haman wanted to do evil to Mordechai, and the evil is done to him. That's how the Maram Shif learns that the Yud Kevav K is at the end of the word. Pasuk Ches. Ve'amelech shav miginata bitan el beit mishtayan. The king comes back to the Mishnah. Ve'haman nofel al hamita ashter aster leah. He found Haman on the couch on top of Esther. Vayomer HaMelech, Hagam lichbosh et hamalkai mi babayit? Are you trying to conquer or assault my Malka even in front of me? Hadavar yatsa mipi HaMelech. The words came out of the king's mouth, Ufnei Haman chafu. And the people in the room covered up Haman's face. We'll talk about that in a minute, what that means. So I think Johnny was referring to this. In the garden, that's where they executed Vashti. And now Achashverosh is reminding that it was Haman
Who's to blame?
who was to blame for that. And now he's alone with Esther. And that he's been planning and scheming to kill Esther and all the people. So he's angry. So now he comes back. And now what does he see? He sees Haman falling all over Esther. And the Medrash tells us that he tried to get up and an angel pushed him. Tried to get up and an angel pushed him. That this is all part of Hashem's plan. And Haman maybe was trying to ingratiate himself but the king, of course, misinterprets all of this and to make it even worse for Haman. Now, the Mita, what's the Mita doing there? Well, we know from the Seder, their mechanism of eating was not like us at a table. They all were on couches, like a divan. And they had these, movable TV trays brought to them. So having a Mita is not unusual. We said even in the original party, it says mitot zahava kesef. They had golden and silver, couches. It was common practice in Persia to cover the face of a prisoner who was about to be executed. So the courtiers and the servants there, they knew Haman was a dead man. So that's the pshat that they covered his face. The Vilna Gaon learns that he was depressed. Like it said, Avel v'chafui rosh. When the daughter dumped the chamber pot on his head, that's the same language used, chafui. So he was depressed. The Chidah, the Bnei Yissaschar brings, again, a little mystical here, says that Esther was the Gilgul of Yael. We learned Yael with Dvorah and Sisra. And Sisra was running away from Dvorah and Barak ben Avinoam. And Yael was Eishes Chever Akeni. And she killed Sisra. And Haman is the Gilgul of Sisra. And when Esther says Tsumu Alai, right? Those words spell Yael. And Yael also submitted to Bia with Sisera, which was impermitted because she was married, but it's on the basis of the saving Klal Yisrael. So too, when Esther went voluntarily to Achashverosh, we discussed all that. The Bnei Yissaschar says Purim is Puria. We know in Daf Yomi, Puria is Aramaic for bed. The nace, the biggest part of the nace, was this Haman Nofel al Hamita, on the bed, which only sort of sealed his fate in the eyes of Achashverosh. Pasuk Tes. Vayomer Charvona Echad min Asar Yisim Lifnei HaMelech. One of the officers in the palace spoke up. Look, here is a gallows. You weren't aware that Haman prepared gallows for Mordechai, who spoke well about the king, who saved the king's life. Omeid b'veis Haman, it's been erected in Haman's house, Gavoa chamishim amah. Vayomer HaMelech immediately tlu alav. And the Melech Achashverosh gives a command to hang him immediately on that gallows. Who was Charvona? One of the people who were sent at the end of Perek, the previous Perek, it says Sarisim went to go bring Haman to the party. That was Charvona. While there, he overheard the plot to hang Mordechai, and he saw the gallows that had been erected. In fact, the Gemara in Megillah 16a says that Charvona were among those that discussed hanging Mordechai. But Charvona was sharp. He saw immediately that this all had unraveled quickly. Haman was in Achashverosh's doghouse, and therefore immediately switched, became Haman's enemy. And before Haman could say anything and say, oh, Charvona was part of this, he quickly told Achashverosh to hang Haman. And Charvona says, this isn't the only, you think this is the only thing Haman has done? He was an accomplice of Big Son Viserys. And he became an enemy of Mordechai back then when Mordechai gave up his friends, Big Son Viserys. And that Haman wanted to hang Mordechai, because Mordechai was so loyal to the king. So you can see how quick Charvona is. Not only does he realize that Haman is in the doghouse, but he sees Mordechai's star ascending. So very quickly in the same sentence, he's praising Mordechai. He knows where his bread is going to be buttered.
He's a pragmatist.
Yet, what does it say in Shoshanas Yaakov? Charvona Zachor Latov. That we should remember Charvona. We have to question, what does that mean? It seems like it doesn't make a difference what a person's kavana is. If the intent works out good for the Jewish people, we have to consider that good. Of course, hanging the person where it was announced throughout the city, Hamelach Chafetz Bikaro, is only again digging Haman's grave more. Now, we learned in one of the first prakim that we learned that it was Haman who had created this new rule that the Melech didn't have to go through his council of advisors to execute someone. And we said at the end, it came back to hurt Haman, because that's why Haman doesn't have to convene a court. He just can command. That didn't exist before Haman changed that rule when it came to kill Vashti. The Michtav Me'Eliyahu, right? Rabbi Eliyahu Dessler points out that all of Haman's, everything that happened in his fall, he had created all of it because he had gotten rid of Vashti, which led to Esther, which then led to his fall. And we say Memuchan Zeh Haman, because he was making everything that led to his own downfall. It says he personally Heichin Ha'etz. He personally didn't ask. We learned when they built the gallows for Mordechai, it was Haman himself who did it. So Haman himself erected the gallows that he was hung on. And as I said, it was Haman himself who created the new rule that the Melech didn't have to get haskama from a panel of advisors to kill somebody. And that's what led to his immediate downfall, because maybe if there would have been some delay, the Melech would have changed his mind. So Haman was making his own death. By the way, one of the Medrash Esther says that who was Charvona in this time? It was Eliyahu Navi who appeared as Charvona. B'dmus Charvona. Says the Maral, why does that have to be? Why couldn't it be Charvona? Says the Maral, Dover shu shayach el ha'geula roy lavo al yedei Yisrael. Something that's going to leads to the redemption of Klal Yisrael has to happen via a Jewish person. And that's why Eliyahu had to come like Charvona, and therefore came al yedei Yisrael. Pasuk Yud. Vayislu es Haman ala eitz asher echin leMordechai. They hung Haman on the same gallows that Mordechai had erected for Mordechai. V'chamas hamelech shachacha, with two chafs. Now the word shacha means it went down. Why do I need double chafs? So the Gemara answers there were two angers. The anger of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem had been angry against Klal Yisrael for bowing down to the tzelem of Nebuchadnezzar. And the other anger is Achashverosh against Haman. Others say the double chaf is Achashverosh is doubly angry at Haman. That Haman was plotting to kill Esther. That's how Rashi learns. And he like Johnny said, that he had been reminded about Vashti, that he was also quickly told to kill her. And now everything calms down when Haman, who was the instigator, is finally hung. Okay, I could start Perek K, but I think we'll just do it next week. Any questions, comments, Ha'arot?
Perek Chet.
Perek Chet. Next week will be Perek Chet, God willing. I think we'll be able to finish Perek Chet next week. And then Perek Tes is probably 2 weeks because it's long. And that's it. And there's just a few psukim in Perek Tes. So Perek Yud, I think we'll be done before Purim.
Yeah. Shkoyach, Shavua Tov.